someone says something, offhand, a tone, a message that doesn't come back. And just like that, your entire day collapses. You tell yourself, it's nothing. You tell yourself, you're overreacting. But the feeling doesn't care what you tell it. It moves in, sits down, and quietly starts running the show. Your mood, your focus, your sense of who you are, all of it handed over to someone who probably wasn't even thinking about you. And the worst part? It keeps happening. Different people, different situations, same result. Your boss's disapproval hollows you out. Your partner's distance pulls you into a quiet panic. A stranger's comment at the wrong moment, and something inside you buckles. You start adjusting. You shape yourself depending on who's in the room. You read the temperature before you speak. You perform, you monitor, you correct, endlessly, trying to keep the world in a configuration that allows you to feel okay. And maybe you've told yourself what the solution is. Care less, grow thicker skin, be more confident, as if the problem is simple, as if you just feel too much, as if what you need is better armor. Carl Jung would tell you that diagnosis is wrong, completely wrong, because after decades of working with the human psyche, not theories about it, but the living, irrational, often terrifying machinery of it, he arrived at a conclusion most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You are not being controlled by other people. You are being controlled by parts of yourself that you have projected onto other people. The person who has power over your emotions is not wielding that power. You gave it to them, unconsciously, because something in them reflects something in you that you have refused to face. This is not a comforting idea. It's not meant to be, because what it implies is that the problem was never out there, and neither is the solution. By the end of this, you will understand how this mechanism works, why it runs so deep, and what it is actually costing you. Not as a concept, but as your life, the exact shape of your reactions, your dependencies, your collapses. But be warned, what Jung is asking of you is not self-improvement. It is something far harder and far more necessary. He is asking you to look at what you have hidden from yourself and to stop pretending you don't know it's there. Most people believe emotional dependency is just a personality flaw, that some people are more sensitive, more needy, more fragile, and that the solution is to toughen up, to want less, to need less. But that assumption protects you from something far more unsettling. Jung observed that most people live what he called an outside-in existence. Identity, self-worth, emotional stability, none of it generated from within, all of it contingent. When you are approved of, accepted, successful, you feel solid. But when you are criticized, rejected, overlooked, something in you gives way. Not bends, gives way. The floor disappears, and for a moment, you are nobody. This is not sensitivity. This is structure, and structures have architecture. What you have built, without knowing you were building it, is a psychological arrangement where your center of gravity lives outside of you, in other people's opinions, their approval, their attention, their validation, which means you are never actually stable. You are only ever as stable as the last thing someone said or didn't say. The way they looked at you across a room. You handed the controls to an external world that has no interest in holding them carefully. Carl Jung was precise about what this costs. A person whose emotional equilibrium depends entirely on external conditions is not living. They are managing. Every interaction becomes a calculation. Every relationship, a negotiation, for the validation that keeps the floor from disappearing. And because no external source can ever provide that stability permanently, the management never ends. You are always one wrong comment away from collapse. The cruelty of this arrangement is that it feels normal. It feels like this is just how people are, because almost everyone around you is doing the same thing. You have all quietly agreed to regulate each other's sense of self, to keep the structure standing through mutual approval and performance. And the moment someone steps out of that agreement, even accidentally, the whole thing starts to shake. What Jung is pointing to is not a wound you need to heal. It is a center of gravity you never built, and until you build it, inside yourself, from your own substance, you will remain exactly where you are. Emotionally, at the mercy of a world that was never designed to hold you. So the question becomes, where did this architecture come from? Why do certain people have such power over your emotions, far beyond who they actually are? The answer is not in them. It is in what you have placed inside them without realizing it, and that is where we go next. If this is starting to make sense, subscribe. Stay with this, because what comes next goes deeper. The people who provoke your strongest reactions are not random. The irritation that lingers for hours, the contempt that surprises even you, the anger that feels personal before you've even had time to think, that intensity is not about them. It is a signal, and it is pointing inward. This is what Jung called shadow projection. The shadow is not simply your dark side. It is everything you have disowned, every quality you decided was unacceptable and pushed out of awareness. The anger you learned to swallow, the selfishness you were taught to be ashamed of, the weakness you buried because weakness was dangerous. None of it disappeared. It went underground, accumulated pressure, and it has been waiting, ever since, for a face to attach itself to. And when it finds one, the reaction is immediate and disproportionate. Someone is arrogant, and it doesn't just bother you, it infuriates you in a way that lingers. Someone is needy, and your contempt feels almost personal. Normal irritation passes, projected shadow catches fire. Carl Jung was exact about what this means. In The Undiscovered Self, he observed how quickly human beings locate evil, weakness, fault in others, and how this outward gaze is not clarity. It is evasion. Our strongest judgments are autobiographical. The qualities that provoke your most visceral reactions are the ones most deeply connected to what you have rejected in yourself. And the shadow is not only what is dark, it is everything your ego decided does not belong in your identity. If you see yourself as calm, rational, your anger doesn't disappear. It moves into the shadow. And suddenly, people who express anger openly disturb you more than they should. If your identity depends on being selfless, your own self-interest is pushed out of awareness. And when you meet someone who is selfish, your reaction goes far beyond simple discomfort. Because you are not seeing them clearly, you are seeing yourself refracted. Jung insisted. This is not a metaphor. It is a precise description of how psychic energy moves. When something is expelled from consciousness, it does not vanish. It migrates. It finds a host. And as long as it remains projected, you are dependent on that host. Every encounter with them becomes an encounter with the part of yourself you have refused to integrate. This is why certain people have a hold on you that makes no rational sense. Your intellect knows their opinion shouldn't matter this much, but the shadow is not listening to the intellect. And the only way to reduce another person's power over your emotional state is to withdraw the projection. Not by deciding to care less. That is suppression. And suppression only increases the pressure, but by turning toward what the reaction is pointing at, by asking, with real honesty, what is this person showing me about myself that I have not been willing to see? That question is not comfortable, but it is the only question that actually moves anything. Because as long as your shadow lives in other people, they will keep controlling you. Not because they have power, but because you placed your own power inside them and forgot you did it. And yet, shadow projection is only one part of the mechanism. There is another, more subtle, and in many ways, more devastating. the one that makes you feel completely whole, when a specific person approves of you, and completely destroyed when they don't. That is not the projection of what you rejected. That is the projection of what you most need to become. And that is where we go next. There is a particular kind of emotional collapse that feels different. Not ordinary hurt, not the sting of criticism, not the friction of conflict, but something deeper, the devastation of losing someone you placed at the center of your world, a partner, a mentor, a figure whose approval made you feel, for a moment, completely enough. And when that person withdraws, the pain is not proportional. It is total, and you cannot understand why something that was supposed to be about them feels like the loss of yourself. Carl Jung could tell you why, because it was never entirely about them. This is what he called the projection of the self, different from the shadow, and in many ways more seductive, because the self is not your ego. It is the totality of what you are and what you could become, the integrated whole that most people spend their lives approaching but never fully inhabiting. It is that sense of completeness, what Jung called individuation, the slow, lifelong process of becoming who you truly are. And because that process is difficult and mostly unconscious, the psyche looks for a shortcut. It projects that wholeness onto another person. The person you idealize is not who you think they are. They are a screen, and onto them, you project everything you have not yet allowed yourself to become, the confidence you don't trust yourself to hold, the freedom you have not permitted yourself, the wholeness you sense is possible, but have not yet reached. And when they validate you, something deeper than pride responds. It feels like completion, like finally being seen, not just by them, but by the part of you that you placed inside them. And when they reject you, the collapse is just as total, because you did not lose a person. You lost the part of yourself you were storing inside them. Jung saw this clearly, especially in relationships, but it is not limited to romance. The mentor, whose criticism undoes you completely. The authority figure, whose approval you chase with an urgency you don't understand. The friend, whose perception of you feels more real than your own. In every case, the structure is the same. You have outsourced your sense of wholeness into another human being and called it love, admiration, respect. What it actually is, Carl Jung would say, is dependency, dressed in the language of connection. In the undiscovered self, Jung returned again and again to one danger, the danger of placing your psychological foundation outside yourself, in institutions, in ideologies, in the crowd, in the state. But the same principle operates at the most intimate level. The moment you build your sense of wholeness around another person, you turn them into something more than human. You turn them into a god. And gods, when they fail you, as every human being eventually will, do not disappoint. They annihilate. Because what collapses is not the relationship. It is the structure of your self-worth. Something you built on ground that was never yours to build on. This is why some rejections cannot be reasoned away. People tell you they weren't right for you. You will find someone better. Your worth is not defined by their opinion. And you know they are right. You know it, with your entire mind. And still, nothing changes. Because the wound is not in your mind. It is deeper, in the place where you stored something essential about yourself, and now that place is empty. The way out of this is not to stop idealizing, not to become colder, more guarded, more cynical. That is only another form of avoidance. The real path is to begin building internally what you have been seeking externally, to ask with real seriousness, what is it about this person that makes me feel whole? What quality, what freedom, what sense of completeness am I seeing in them that I have not yet allowed in myself? Because whatever that answer is, It belongs to you. It was always yours. You simply had not built it yet. So you borrowed it from someone else's image. Jung called the goal individuation, the slow, unremarkable, often invisible process of becoming whole, not through accumulation, not through approval, not through achievement, but through integration, through reclaiming everything you projected outward and bringing it back into yourself. A person who has done even part of this work does not stop loving, does not stop admiring, but they stop needing others to hold their center. They can be rejected without being destroyed, because what they value most no longer lives in someone else's hands. But even here, there is another layer, because even when you are not projecting your shadow, and even when you are not projecting your ideal self, something still remains. The mask, the identity you built for the world to approve of, and the fragility hidden just behind it. That is where we go next. At some point, you stopped performing for the world and started believing the performance, the competent one, the good one, the reliable one, the one who has it together. You built that image carefully, over years, in response to what the world rewarded and what it punished. And it worked. People responded to the mask. They approved it, promoted it, loved it, and slowly, without noticing, you moved inside it. You stopped being the one who wears the mask and became the mask itself. Carl Jung called this the persona, the social face you construct to move through the world. And he was careful to say, this is not a problem in itself. Every human being needs a mask. The problem is forgetting that you are wearing one. Because the moment you fully identify with it, your entire sense of self becomes dependent on its survival. Your value is no longer something you feel from within. It becomes something the mask must earn, again and again and again. Through performance, through approval, through being seen in the right way, which means every threat to the mask is felt as a threat to you. Not metaphorically, psychologically. When someone criticizes the competent professional, it is not the role that feels attacked. It is you, all of you, because there is no longer any distance between the role and the person playing it. This is why one comment can ruin an entire day. Not because the comment was devastating, but because it landed on something too fused with your identity, a persona so inflated, so tightly bound to who you believe you are, that even a small crack feels like collapse. Jung saw this clearly. The more rigid the persona becomes, the more fragile the psyche behind it. Because all the energy that should have gone into building something real has been redirected into maintaining an appearance. The mask grows thicker. The person behind it grows thinner. And the thinner they become, the more desperately the mask must be protected. In The Undiscovered Self, Jung described the modern individual as someone shaped more and more by external forces, by institutions, by systems, by the expectations of the collective. And the persona is the psychological result of that pressure. It is the self you built, not from within, but in response to what was expected of you. And because it was built for others, it depends on others to survive. Their approval is not just pleasant, it is structural. Remove it, and the entire construction starts to shake. You can see this in yourself if you notice what kind of criticism you cannot absorb. Not all criticism. Everyone struggles with some of it, but the specific kind, that targets the identity you are most invested in. Tell someone who defines themselves by intelligence that their thinking is sloppy, and watch what happens. Tell someone who built their identity on being kind that they acted selfishly, even once. The reaction is disproportionate, defensive, sometimes furious, not because the criticism is wrong, but because it touched the load-bearing wall, the one thing that cannot be questioned, because without it, you don't know who you are. This is the hidden cost of living through a persona. It doesn't just make you dependent on approval, It makes you a stranger to yourself. Because the self the world sees and validates is not quite you. It is a version of you, curated, assembled from what was acceptable. And everything else, what didn't fit, what didn't belong, what wasn't approved, was pushed away, into the shadow, projected outward, or silenced completely. And over time, the distance grows between who you are and what you show, until in quiet moments, it becomes something else, a kind of loneliness that has no name. You are surrounded by people who approve of you, and none of them know you. Carl Jung did not say to destroy the persona. That would be chaos, a collapse into something unformed. The answer is something more difficult, to build enough inside yourself that the mask becomes what it was meant to be, a tool, an interface with the world, something you wear consciously, not something you are forced to defend, and that requires building something real behind it. A self that does not depend on constant validation, because it has ground of its own. But even this is not the deepest layer, because beneath the persona, beneath the shadow, beneath the idealized figures you placed your wholeness in, there is something older, something that was there before all of this. A wound, one that has been shaping your choices, your relationships, your reactions, long before you had the words to describe it. And that is where we go next. If this is resonating, you can go deeper, beyond the shadow, dialogues with the unconscious, tools to actually work with this. Links are in the pinned comment because what comes next is not theory, it is personal. There is a specific kind of person whose disapproval undoes you. Not everyone. A type, the authority figure, the boss, whose opinion feels like a verdict on your worth. The older partner, whose distance pulls you inward. The mentor, who withholds approval, and somehow that absence becomes everything. You know, rationally, this should not matter this much. And yet, it does. Every time. With a consistency that is trying to show you something. It is telling you something. It is telling you, you are not actually here. Not fully, not in this moment. You are somewhere else, somewhere older. Carl Jung called this the parental imago, the internal image of the parent, formed early and carried forward with disturbing precision. This is not memory. It is structure, a living pattern through which you experience people, certain figures, certain dynamics, certain wounds, activated again and again and again. The child who never received steady approval does not grow up and leave that behind. They grow up and begin searching for it everywhere, in bosses, in mentors, in partners who carry the same emotional signature. The search is unconscious. The hunger is not. And what makes this so difficult to see is that it does not feel like the past. It feels like now. When your manager criticizes you and it lands like a verdict on your entire worth, it does not arrive labeled. It does not say, "This is your father's voice." It feels real, accurate, final, and the intensity is immediate, so convincing that it bypasses thought entirely. You are an adult. You have evidence, experience, proof of who you are. And still, one comment from the right person reduces you to someone younger, more exposed, more afraid. Jung did not soften this. He was clear. The cost is enormous, because the person who has not examined their inner life is not free. They are being directed by forces they cannot see, making choices that feel like preference, but are not. They are compulsions, drawn toward people and situations that recreate the original conditions, not because they want pain, but because something remains unfinished, and the psyche, in its strange logic, keeps returning, keeps recreating, keeps presenting the same wound in different forms, different faces, different stories, hoping this time it will be resolved. But it never is. Not like that. Because the person in front of you is not the one who created the wound. They cannot heal it. They can only activate it. And every time it activates and you collapse or react or reshape yourself to earn what is missing, you are not solving it. You are feeding it. You are giving it another place in your present life. This is what Jung meant when he said the unconscious directs your life and you call it fate. Because if you have not seen this mechanism, you do not experience these reactions as history. You experience them as reality. You think, this is just who I am. Someone who needs reassurance, someone who struggles with authority, someone who keeps choosing the same kind of unavailable person. They don't see the pattern because they are inside it. The wound has been voting in every relationship you've ever had, and you have been calling those votes free will. Recognizing this is not freedom. Not yet. Knowing that your reaction today is entangled with something older does not make it disappear, but it creates something that wasn't there before. Distance, a small space between the trigger and the collapse. Just enough to ask a different question. Does this intensity belong to now or to something much older? And slowly, that space grows, enough to stop handing the present over to the past. That space, small at first, difficult to hold, is where autonomy begins. Not in pretending you don't care, not in acting indifferent, but in the slow, unremarkable work of taking back what the wound has been spending on your behalf. Which brings us to the only question that matters. What does it mean to take it back? Because everything here points to the same place. The shadow you project, the wholeness you give away, the mask you became, the wound that keeps choosing for you, these are not separate problems. They are one structure, a self built almost entirely from the outside in, dependent on what should only exist within you. Carl Jung had a word for the opposite of this. Individuation, not a technique, not a shortcut, a process, a long, often invisible process of becoming yourself. Not the version others expected, not the version built to survive, not the version performed for approval, but the one that remains when nothing external is holding you up. Jung saw this as the central task of a human life, and he did not lie about the cost. You have to face what you spent your life avoiding. This is the truth everything has been pointing to. You are not controlled by others because you are weak. You are controlled because you gave away your center, piece by piece, through projection, through idealization, through wounds you never examined. You placed the most essential parts of yourself into other people, their approval, their opinion, their image of you, and you have been living, waiting to receive yourself back. But reclaiming that does not happen through understanding. Insight alone changes nothing. What changes it is practice, uncomfortable, repeated, catching yourself in the moment, seeing the projection and not following it, feeling the pull and not obeying it, sitting in the discomfort of not performing, not adjusting, not becoming what the moment demands. It is slow, it is messy, it does not move in a straight line, and it never fully ends. But here is what Jung saw. In those who do this work, even partially, they become harder to destroy, not because they stop feeling, but because what they are is no longer living outside of them. They often feel more, not less, because as the defenses fall, what was hidden returns. But now, it no longer has the power to erase them. Criticism still hurts, but it is examined. Whatever truth it contains is taken, and the rest is released. Rejection still hurts, but it is grieved. It does not become a verdict. and the approval of others becomes something else. Not necessary, but genuinely pleasant. In The Undiscovered Self, Carl Jung described this as a kind of freedom. Not freedom from pain, but freedom from dependence, from the need for the world to behave in a certain way so that you can feel that you exist. And that freedom is not given. It is built, slowly, from something that was always yours, but that you placed in other people's hands. So the question remains, right now, where is your center? In your own values, your own knowing of who you are, or in the unstable, unpredictable responses of the world around you? And if you are honest, if you recognized yourself in this, then you already know the answer. The real question is, what are you willing to do about it? Because the wound does not wait. And every day you live from the outside in is another day the most essential parts of you remain elsewhere, in other people, in their approval, in their perception of who you are. And if something opened in you, stay with that. Do not rush to close it. Do not escape too quickly, because that discomfort is the beginning of something real. And if you are ready to go further, the next step is waiting.